Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, my name is Orla. I am an associate professor in the School of Economics at University College Dublin, and I'm also leading on these transnational access visits program as part of the Coordinate project. Okay, so the aim of these transnational access visits is really to provide researchers in Europe with the opportunity to visit and to gain access to birth cohort studies, panel studies, and cross-sectional survey data, all related to child and youth well-being. So as you probably know, there is a host of data sets available in Europe, all focusing on child and youth well-being. But what we realized was that actually they're pretty much underutilized. So one of the main aims of this program is try to encourage more people to use these data sets. As you are also probably aware, I'm having problems moving my slides. Hang on, let me go in again. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, I shouldn't have put in so many animations. So as you're probably aware, many of these data sets are actually already virtually available. So say I'm based in Ireland, and if I want to use a Millennium Cohort study in the UK, I fill out a form online, they send the data for me. But if any of you have worked with longitudinal or panel data, you know that it can be quite complex to use. There can be multiple waves of data, there can be thousands of variables. So really having someone sit down beside you and help you navigate through that data set can be really, really beneficial. So the aim of this program is really to provide both access to the data as well as personnel who are expert in that data. Sorry, the transitions are slower than I thought. So I'm going to put up them all at the same time. Okay, so some details about the program. The program funds these collaborative research visits for a minimum of 1 week and for a maximum of 3 weeks. So it's really up to you if you want to visit for 1 week, or if you want to visit for 2 weeks or for 3 weeks. It's up for you to decide. Now, note that the visits can be split over multiple weeks. You don't have to take all the visits sequentially. So for example, you may decide to go for a week in May, then get used to the data. You may then go back home, spend a couple of months working with the data. And then when you have more specific questions, you may decide to go back in September, for example. Okay, so you're allowed to take multiple visits as long as you don't exceed the total budget that is allocated. Speaking of the budget, applicants will be reimbursed up to €1,250 per week. And this is to cover your travel, your accommodation, as well as your subsistence during the visit. The program is open to academic researchers, so from PhD students all the way up to full professors. But I guess what's interesting about this program is that you don't have to be based in an academic institution to apply. It's also open to policymakers or any other researcher or analyst who's working on child and youth well-being. So some more details about the program. The call for visits will be issued twice a year, so once every 6 months for the next 3 years. And we have just launched the first call yesterday. So the deadline for that call finishes on the 25th of February. So you have 4 weeks to put in your applications. And this call will cover visits that take place between April 2002 and April 2023. So basically, as soon as you find out you get the funding, you have up to 1 year to do the visit. Okay, so there are 8 different host institutions which you can visit. And within this, there are multiple different data sets that you can use. So you can visit us here in UCD in Ireland. You can visit the Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK. You can visit the Netherlands Interdisciplinary Demographic Institute in the Netherlands, University of Essex in the UK, Centre Data in the Netherlands, the European Centre in Austria, INED in France, and IPSOS in Germany, in Berlin. So on the Coordinate website, we have created fact sheets for each of these institutions and data sets. So if you click on the name on the website, it will bring you into a separate document that lists the information about the host institution itself and also information on the data set. So you can get a much better idea of what's in the data set, where you can access it, and so on. Now, the eligibility criteria for the program are as follows. Firstly, the subject of your research has to be on child and youth well-being. Now, we are conceptualizing child well-being in a very holistic way, a very general way. So it includes child's health, child's education, it can include parenting, family dynamics, whatever you want, as long as it's linked in some way to children. You must also work in an EU country or an associated country, and the list of associated countries are available on the Coordinate website. And you have to be based in a country or you can only apply to go somewhere that you're not based. So I'm based in Ireland, which means that I can't apply to do another visit in Ireland, but I could go to the UK or France. Okay, so you have to apply to do a visit in a country other than the one in which you are based. You also must have a contract or some type of an affiliation with a recognized academic or public institution or an NGO or some registered company in an EU member state. And that contract must cover the duration of the visit. So let's say you've got 3 months left on your contract, your postdoc contract, you wouldn't be eligible to apply unless you knew you had another contract coming up. Okay, so your contract has to cover the duration of the visit. Now, if you are not based in the EU country or an associated state, you still are eligible to apply for these transnational access visits, but there is a limit on how many of these we can issue. So the limit is up to 20% of all visits can be taken by people who are not based in the EU. PhD students are eligible to apply and are actively encouraged to apply. However, master's students and bachelor students are not eligible. And finally, if you are a member of the Coordinate Consortium, you are not eligible to apply. What does this mean? Well, basically, I can't apply, Anna can't apply, anyone who's directly working on this project can't apply. However, our colleagues in our institutions who aren't involved in Coordinate are allowed to apply. However, as the aim of this project is really to increase the network and number of researchers that are using child wellbeing data, priority will definitely be given to people who are based in institutions other than the institutions that are funded through Coordinate. Okay. The application form, we have purposely kept the application form very short to make it easy for you to apply. There are 5 sections. In the first section, you'll just be asked, what is the title of your project? What host institution do you wish to visit? Which data set do you want to visit? As well as providing some information about yourself. The second part then is really about the scientific and technical objectives of your project. So you'll be asked to describe the objectives, the context, and the rationale for your project, and the maximum number of words you can use is 300. You'll also be asked to describe the original and innovative aspects of your project, and again, you only have to write 150 words on this. The third part then is all about the quality of the methodological and implementation of your project. So you'll be asked to provide the proposed method, your work plan, the schedule for your project, and again, only 300 words. You'll also be asked to describe the reason why you want to visit this particular host institution, and most importantly, why it's this particular data set that you want to use. And again, it's only 150 words. You'll also be asked to tell us when you would like to do the visit, and as well, is there any other institutions you'd like to visit as well? Continuing on then in part 3, you'll also be asked, is there anything specific that you need in your visit? So do you need to access special equipment? Is there some materials you want to use? You'll also be asked to detail any risks for you to ensure the successful completion of this project and how you'll mitigate against those risks. So obviously the biggest risk we all face at the moment when it comes to travel is COVID. So that obviously is something you can write about. And finally, you're going to be asked, like, what do you actually want to get out of this project? Is it just that you want to get access to data and know how it works? Or is there someone in the host institution that you want to actually actively collaborate with and to write a paper with? So both are acceptable. The fourth part of the application then is about the scientific excellence of the applicant. So basically, how good are you? You'll be asked to write a short biography of about 150 words, and you'll be asked to list all your relevant publications in the last 3 years. And then finally, if you are a PhD student, you'll be asked to name your PhD supervisor and whether or not you have their support. But you do not actually require a letter of support from your PhD student, because again, we want to make this process as easy as possible. In terms of how we're going to review the applications, we do have a selection panel that consists of members of our team here in the Coordinate project, as well as some independent members as well. So each member of the review panel, we will read each application and we will score them. Then we're going to take the average score and you will be assigned one of the following categories. So either your funding will be approved, your funding will not be approved. We will suggest that perhaps there's some other institution than the one you described that you should visit, or else you'll be asked to resubmit your application to the next call. And you're going to find out the results of the process pretty quickly. So 1 month after applying, or so 1 month after the call closes, you'll find out if you're successful or not. So basically, you'll know by the end of March whether you've been successful or not. fingers crossed, assuming everything works. The selection criteria, we will judge the suitability of your application based on the innovativeness of the project, the relevance to coordinate aims, implementation of your project, the scientific impact, and finally the quality of the applicant. Just to note that we are placing a particular priority on early stage researchers, those from low GDP countries, countries which have less experience with longitudinal data, and of course a gender balance will be prioritized as well. So there's a number of things you need to do both before, during, and after the visit. So before the visit, if you have been successful, you will then have to coordinate with the host institution that you're going to visit around the logistics. So when you'll go, how the reimbursement arrangements works, whether there's any data kind of contract you need to sign in advance. During your visit then, you'll be provided with an office and a computer, access to personnel, and you'll have to complete a timesheet while you're there. And then after the visits, you have to submit your expenses within 60 days of your visit. We'll ask you to write a short report about your visit. We'll ask you to write a blog post that we're going to put up on the Coordinate website about your visit. This can be about your work, but just all the fun things you do, like walking in the mountains or whatever else you do when you're visiting. And then we will ask you to complete a survey on your outputs about maybe 6 months to a year after you've done your visit. So this is my last slide. This is just how to apply. You should check your eligibility criteria to see if you are eligible to apply. You can read our TAV policy document that is available on our website, and then you can complete the online application form that again is available on the Coordinate website. So you have to apply through this online portal, but we've actually included a copy of the application form on the website, so you can basically, fill out that in advance and then copy and paste it into the online form. You can find more information about Coordinate on the website. And if you have any more specific questions about the Coordinate at the TAV program, you can contact our TAV coordinator, which is Catherine, who works here, Catherine, who works here in UCD, and I've included her email there. And I'm going to finish there because I'm conscious of time, but good luck, everyone, in applying. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Shauneen from UCD, who will tell you all about how great our institution is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Orla. Shauneen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And Orla, thank you for that really clear and comprehensive explanation of the process. Okay, so my name is Shauneen Sloan and I'm an assistant professor in the UCD School of Education. In my presentation now, I'm going to give a brief introduction to UCD and the two data sets that applicants can consider for a visit to our university, and we really hope you will be considering coming to Dublin. So UCD, which is Ireland's largest and most international university, was founded in 1854 and is ranked within the top 1% of higher education institutions worldwide. Belfield, which is the main UCD campus, is located in the south of Dublin city centre. And the campus itself is a really well-known location in terms of its beautiful parkland setting, with a huge amount of land devoted to woodland parks that are available for lovely walks. So it's a nice place to visit, nice atmosphere. Successful applicants to this programme who opt to come to UCD would be based within the Geary Institute for Public Policy. And this is a centre of excellence for policy relevant, theoretically informed and empirically grounded research in the social and behavioural sciences. The Geary Institute itself draws together academics from across a range of disciplines within the university, and it includes a large cohort of fellows, of PhD students, and then also visiting fellows and international affiliates. And the UCD Coordinate team are all members of the Geary Institute, as well as being members of their own schools, which are the School of Education, the School of Economics, and the School of Psychology. So visitors would therefore have access to a large network of potential collaborators and would have the opportunity to attend seminars that are going on or present at seminars, attend workshops and things like that, as well as access training and support on using the available data sets. So I'm now going to say a bit about the two data sets and the two studies from which those data sets are based on. And both of these studies are longitudinal cohort studies, so children's school lives and growing up in Ireland. Children's school lives is it's a mixed method study of children's experiences of primary education in Ireland, and it's funded by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, which is a statutory body of the Department of Education in Ireland. And this study began in 2018 with the first waves of data being collected in 2019. So it started pre-pandemic and has spanned the period since then. It's led by a team of researchers at the School of Education in UCD, which includes Professor Dimpna Devine, Associate Professor Jennifer Simons, Dr. Gabriella Martinez-Sands, and myself. And we're following two cohorts of children. Cohort A involves a group of about 1,600 5-year-old children who are attending a representative sample of 85 primary schools. And with this cohort of younger children, there's currently data available for 2 waves of data collection. And the first wave really focuses on children's experiences of their entry into formal schooling in Ireland. And then the second wave, completed in spring 2021, was conducted towards the end of their second year of primary education. And we're going to continue following this cohort for another 2 years, 2 waves of data collection. And we have a second cohort then of slightly older children. So cohort A focuses on like the first half of primary schooling, and cohort B focuses on the second. And with the second cohort, we began collecting data when these children were in their 4th year of primary schooling and were aged about 8 to 9 years. And this was in a separate sample of 100 primary schools, representative of all primary schools in Ireland. And for this cohort, we have 3 waves of data. And this includes a wave that was administered during the school closure period of the pandemic in spring 2020, albeit the sample size for that cohort or for that wave is slightly reduced. We're going to be collecting data with that cohort for another 2 more years, which includes their transfer from primary to secondary school. But so far, this is what data is available across those 2 cohorts. And on this slide, really, there's just a snapshot of some of the topics that CSL includes. And I mentioned earlier that CSL is a mixed method study. So just to add that we also have, while we focus a lot here in this presentation on the quantitative side of the study, which includes data collection with children, with teachers, with their parents and their principals, we also do longitudinal data collection in a qualitative sense in 13 case study classrooms. And that data is also available for secondary analysis. So this study is a really unique in terms of its breadth and depth in the information that we've collected on primary education in Ireland. So if anyone is interested in considering working with this data, we'd be really glad to hear from you, and you can visit the study website to find out a bit more and to reach out to us to discuss. So I'm now going to move on to talking about growing up in Ireland. And this study is conducted by the Economic and Social Research Institute in Ireland in collaboration with Trinity College Dublin. And the data sets that are available to date are held by the Irish Social Science Data Archive. And growing up in Ireland also includes 2 cohorts. So one is referred to as cohort 98. And this is a cohort of children born in 1998, and they are nationally representative. It was a nationally representative sample of 9-year-olds who were first studied in 2007 and 2008. 4 waves of data are available for this cohort. That takes us right up to this cohort being aged 20 years of age. And then the second cohort, which is referred to now as cohort 08, is another nationally representative sample of children who were recruited at 9 months of age, along with their families, back in 2008-9. And these children have been followed since then, and there's currently available 5 waves of data collection which takes us up to these children now being, well, they're a bit older than 9, but they were 9 years of age in 2017-18, which is the most recent wave of data which is publicly available. And just to give you, again, a flavour of some of the topics that are included in Growing Up in Ireland. So the cohort 98 topics, some that may be of interest are around child development, health, hobbies, mental health, identity, and so on. And then in the younger cohort of children, going backwards instead of forwards, there's other variables in relation to the family environment, play, childcare, and things like that. So really that's just a snapshot of some of the things that you might be interested in exploring if you chose to come to UCD and work with us on some of these data sets. And some other members of the team are here, so we'd be delighted to answer any of your questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janine. And I'm giving the word to Cassandra Simmons from the European Centre to speak about their institution and the shared dataset.
Great, thank you, Anna. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cassandra Simmons, and I'm a researcher at the European Centre for Social Welfare Policy and Research based in Vienna, Austria. I'm a researcher in the Health and Care units. And so for the next 8 to 10 minutes, I will be just going over, introducing the European Centre to you, giving you an idea of what a stay with us could look like, and also giving you some information about the dataset share. So, oops, let's see. Perfect. So, as I mentioned, we are based in Vienna, Austria, in the 9th district. I might be a little bit biased as I've called Vienna home now for the last 3 years, but it is a beautiful city and it certainly merits its title as one of the most livable cities in the world. Of course, this should be a secondary aim of your visit, but I must mention it. It is a beautiful city. And the European Centre, we are an internationally established research centre that's concerned with all aspects of health, social welfare policy, and research. So we work on quite a wide breadth of topics relating to these areas, all the way from health and long-term care, inequalities in health and long-term care, all the way to labor market policy, migration, income inequalities, and poverty. So we really cover quite a wide breadth of topics. We are a relatively small center in comparison to other centers. We are 21 individuals, and most of our work specializes in comparative research across the breadth of topics I just mentioned here. Yeah, so what the European Centre can offer, I would summarize these briefly in 3 points. The first is what I just mentioned. We have expertise in comparative research on social policy topics. A lot of the projects we work on are comparative in nature and are in collaboration with other European institutes. So this is certainly one of our main highlights. The second is the optimal size. As I mentioned, we are relatively small, but I would say we are still very mighty. We have a lot of research projects and we pump out quite a few publications. And this is all done with very, very close collaboration between colleagues. So if you are to be successful in applying for a stay with us, you would certainly benefit from this very close collaboration. And third, we have quite an extensive network, both at the Austrian and European level. As mentioned, we have many comparative projects ongoing that allows us to work with many partner institutions across Europe, but we also have quite a few Austrian ongoing projects as well. And so through all of this, we do frequently host international seminars and other events and webinars. And so if you were to be successful in applying for a stay with us, you could certainly benefit from these, whether that means you presenting your own research at these events or just participating out of your own interest. So the survey that would be the basis of your research stay with us is the SHARE survey, which stands for the Survey on Health, Aging, and Retirement in Europe. And so for those of you that are not familiar with this survey, it's a nationally representative longitudinal survey of adults age 50 plus carried out biannually. It's quite wide-reaching, as the last wave was carried out in 28 European countries, as well as Israel. The first survey wave was in 2004, and with it being carried out every second year, almost, until now there have been 8 waves. And the 8th wave was quite relatively recently released. And so the topics that are covered by the SHARE survey is demographics of the individual, their health, social networks and support, their children, long-term care use, provision, employment, pensions, financial circumstances, childhood circumstances, and more. And so I will get to this in a second, what this exactly has to do with child and youth well-being. Many of you might be aware that this data set is available to all registered users online. It's completely free. You can access it from anywhere in the world. So this begs the question, why would you stay with us, the European Centre, to use SHARE when it's so widely available already? And the answer to this is that we have very extensive experience in working with SHARE. From preparing the data to use it and carrying out quantitative analyses with SHARE, we have very extensive experience. We've used SHARE in quite a variety of ways, whether using its panel characteristics, its cross-sectional characteristics. We've even used it for microsimulations. And our extensive experience with SHARE is evidenced by the large number of publications we have using SHARE collectively amongst us at the European Centre, but also just the fact that we have used SHARE across such a wide range of projects and continue to use SHARE even now. So really, with the European Centre, we would be there to support and to help and train you in using the data and also carrying out quantitative analyses for your project. More on that in a second. So as I said before, you might be wondering, so SHARE is a survey done on individuals aged 50 plus. So what does it have to do with child and youth well-being? Well, research over the last decades has shown us that inequalities in later life tend to stem from circumstances that occur in earlier life, so childhood. And so it's possible for us to make this connection with SHARE based on the SHARE Life modules that were carried out in 2009 and 2017. And so these SHARE Life modules are essentially collecting retrospective information on childhood circumstances, everything from their living situation as a child, to their accommodation as a child, their health status, their healthcare received, and school performance, and more. So as you can see, it's relatively easy then to link this retrospective information to other waves of SHARE in order to explore inequalities in earlier life that have then led to inequalities later on. And so most research so far that has used SHARE Life has really focused on health and socioeconomic status in childhood and connected this to later events. But there's still a very wide scope of topics available to be investigated with SHARE Life. So just to give you some possibilities or some ideas, some topics you might be interested to work on, should you stay with us at the European Centre, these include using the SHARE Life module, as I just mentioned, looking at childhood circumstances and their impact on health, well-being, poverty, and financial circumstances, and more in later life. But also, using just the normal SHARE modules, it's also possible to look at multi-generational families and grandparenting. So you can see there are quite a few areas that SHARE can be used to look at child and well-being. And finally, SHARE Life has been used, as I mentioned, for looking at socioeconomic status and health in earlier life and connecting this to later life. But actually, SHARE Life tends to be a little bit less used than other aspects of SHARE. So it's certainly a novel area that has a lot of breadth and possibilities for further exploration. So this is just my final slide, just to give you a more concrete idea of what a stay with us at the European Centre could look like. And of course, this is all subject to your own interests and your own interests and what you would also see as a stay. We're definitely open to discussing what you would like to get out of the stay. Oops. Oh, I've lost control, I think. Oh no, it's fine. Can we just go? Yeah, perfect, thank you. So as I mentioned, we would be providing some training and support in preparing the shared data sets to be used. Of course, having a lot of experience preparing data sets, there are some things you need to consider, and it helps to have somebody to take you through this. So we can help you there. We can also provide support in carrying out quantitative methods in order to analyze the shared data, whether this is longitudinal or cross-sectional. We certainly would be open for collaboration on topics of mutual interest if there's something we can find. And then finally, as I mentioned before, you would be more than welcome to present your own research during the seminars we host, or just participate if that's what you would prefer. And we could certainly time your visit in order to coincide with when we are hosting these events. So thank you very much. On the next slide, I have my email address there, as well as the email address of my colleague, Ricardo Rodriguez, who is also overseeing these days. If you have any questions or would like to discuss, we more than welcome you to send us an email. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Cassandra, for this presentation. And I'd like to invite our final speaker, Robert Grimm from IPSOS, to present his own institution.
So hi, my name is Robert Grimm. I work for IPSOS. You may have heard about IPSOS. I think we are a slightly different organization within this context because we come from the private sector. Let me tell you something very quickly about the organization as such. IPSOS, I'm sure you have come across IPSOS perhaps during your professional career, or maybe as researchers looking at different data sets, considering putting together a research project and wanting to collect data somewhere. We are the third biggest global research company. We are also the third biggest market research company in Germany. We have over 18,000 employees. In Germany, we have 600 employees who work in over 90 countries, and we have about 200 offices. So it tells you something about the scope of the organization. We are very, very big player in the research industry. Something which always impressed me about IPSOS was the number of interviews we are actually conducting worldwide. So we do 22 million interviews on offline interviews. Offline research is still a very big aspect of our work, so CAPI and CATI worldwide a year, but we also do 23 million interviews online every year. We have access to online panels in over 150 countries, and we actually have our own panels, our own IPSOS panels, access panels in 57 countries. And we have about 5,000 clients for whom we're working, collecting data in all sorts of situations, varieties, countries, contexts, target groups. So it's really a very big organization. Now you will be coming to Berlin. You're not going to visit the global IPSOS headquarters in Paris. And in Berlin, we have a relatively small but quite capable team of 12 researchers. So we are also relatively small there, of sociologists, political scientists, communication expert, and psychologists. So you will become part of that little team. Our clients in Berlin are universities, the big universities in Germany, like the University of Mannheim, for instance, does a lot of quantitative research. But we also work for governments and international institutions. We currently work with Cassandra together for the European Institute of Gender Equality, for instance. We're part of this research project, obviously. We do a lot of work for political foundations, like the Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, for whom we have done a massive youth survey currently in Eastern Europe. But we also work for World Vision, where we explore the impact of Corona in Ghana and in Germany. Fantastic research, actually, doing CAPI research in Ghana, I've got to say, and trying to put together a representative sample there. It's really interesting to encounter these methodological issues and problems. But we equally work with think tanks and NGOs, so the World Vision is an example of that. I mean, overall, I think that distinguishes us slightly from perhaps the other organizations here is that our work is pretty much applied. We do applied social research within the field of political polling. As an example, we do the exit polling in India, for which we poll about 1 million people, actually. We also do exit polling in France and the UK. Social research, and really our business is, that's what I say all the time, is robust data collection. I think most of you analyze and you interpret, but actually you need an organization that provides you with the data that you can then finally interpret. And we are that organization that makes sure that the data you're having is representative, or let's say as representative as possibly can be, because many times you approach us with a theoretical idea about sampling and data collection that's sometimes not applicable in reality. But anyway, we work applied, and our scope is beyond Germany. We are actually pretty much global. Now that's the team you will encounter while being in Germany. Yeah. Now we also would like to give you access to a specific data set. It's the EU Kids online data set. It's a survey among 9-year to 70-year-old children in Europe. It's really looking at the use of the internet, digital technologies among children in 19 European countries. So far, there have been 2 waves, to the best of my knowledge. The first one was in 2010. At the time it was carried out, the research and data collection by IPSOS Mori centrally. There was another round of EU Kids Online in 2019. And during that round, IPSOS Germany was responsible to collect the data in Germany, together with the Hans Bredow Institute. Now we would like to give you access to the latter data set, although we have been talking with the Hans Bredow Institute, and there is certainly the possibility to also branch out into the 2010 data set, which gives you the ability to compare, because there have been considerable changes in the way in which children, people in general, but perhaps also children, or most specifically children, use the internet, partly due to the fact that there are more and more smartphones and there's broad access to fast mobile internet, partly because new services, digital devices have been enabling children to use the internet at a much earlier stage, like touch screens. I have 2 kids at home, and my daughter was already online with the age of 3. I'm sure for most of you, you have experienced similar things. There are different life worlds as well, like TikTok, Instagram, that didn't exist in 2010. And obviously, there's also a changing policy context, like the GDPR, that puts in place regulations and restrictions in the way we use the internet. So overall, I think that the way the way children use the internet has been changing over the last few years, and therefore there was a second round in terms of EU Kids Online. That's the round we give you access to. But I also believe that there is, scope for a new round, partly due to COVID. COVID will really completely change the way children use technology, also within the field, or particularly within the field of education. Sorry. So broad purpose and research questions that are answered within this data set is: how do children access the internet? What sort of time do they spend on the internet? And I think that's perhaps relatively straightforward, but then there are other questions that can be explored from a number of angles. I mean, what sort of skill sets are required, and where do children get the skill sets from to access the internet? What are the risks and opportunities children are facing when they are using the internet? And I think we're talking many times, specifically when we look at younger members of society, about the risks. But obviously, given especially also the situation within which we find ourselves now, where we're pretty much restricted from participating in public life, we should also consider the opportunities, the social opportunities children may have while being in online spaces. And then what's an additional aspect to this EU Kids online data set is the social context. It isn't just a survey among children, it also explores parental control, attitudes, and behavior of parents when it comes to their children's use of the internet. And obviously that social context will to some degree determine the behavior of the kids. Now, what we want to offer you is actually 2 aspects. I mean, as I said before, we as IPSOS, we are mainly responsible for collecting data. But what I am a former academic, what I found incredibly fascinating was the issues and problems you're facing when you're collecting data, and also when you're dealing with young respondents and children. I mean, what you have to do with the questionnaire, that you have to there are different you have to have different versions of the questionnaire. There needs to be simple, and you have to have parental permissions, etc. So we would like to give you a broader insight into the data collection kind of part of the research, the applied part of the research. And then obviously we would also want you to be part of the IPSOS family looking beyond the vicinity of Berlin, and think globally, and perhaps take place in some of the projects we have, or draw knowledge from our international research and data collection operations. And then on top of that, obviously, we would like to give you access to one of the most topical, I think, digital child development surveys. So that's what we have on offer. And when you continue the presentation later on, you will see that I've also already provided you with the literature review, and we also give you an insight into the main questions of that are covered in the data set. At the very end, my dear colleague Johannes Kaiser has put together some very specific research questions you can answer. And we at IPSOS Berlin, we look forward to meeting you, to contacting you, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert, and thanks again to all the presenters.
For more information, visit www.coordinate-network.eu.